Okay, what I've brought out here is a 7-year-old Foxtrotter mare named Roxy. She's come in for some work. She came in because the owner was going to have some medical work done, and she just wanted to keep her conditioned. Another thing she requested was that the horse stand to mount and be able to be mounted from a mounting block. When the horse arrived, the day that she arrived, and she was led into the barn, I looked at her and I asked, has she been foxtrotting? And she said that she has a really smooth gait. And what I noticed in the horse, and I have a saddle on now, but her back, she had a lot of curve to her back, and she had, her stomach was really distended. And so I said, well, she doesn't look like she has been doing a foxtrot in the shape of her body the way it is developed right now. It looks like she's been doing either something in a racking family of gaits or a pacing movement. And she's been pushing and going hollow through the middle. Although I looked at this mare structure and said she's definitely built to foxtrot. So as I walked her around, I noticed she walked laterally too. She didn't have an even 4-beat, just regular walk to her. And so I kind of showed a couple things that I'd like to work on her back. And if she's not foxtrotting, we should probably get her foxtrotting, because doing a lateral gait for her structure, you can do a little bit of saddle rack if you want to do a little bit of stepping pace, but that's not conducive to her natural conformation. She is built to foxtrot, and that will keep her body healthy. So she will perform longer and sounder through her life, but to keep her in a hollow movement and a stiff movement and a tight movement would not be healthy for her to do all the time. So the owner agreed to go ahead and work on her gait too, if in fact she did do a hollow gait. So I did find that the mare, when I started working with her, the first couple days on the ground, that she was very lateral. I put her on a lunge line. All she did was pace on a line. She raised her head, hollow, pushed out through her stomach, tightened her back. That's what she thought she was supposed to do. She would lean in a circle. She tended to pull on the rope. When I got on her, I put her in a side pull the first time because I didn't get the information of what bit she had been in. I did ask later. So I put her in a side pull. When I got on her, she didn't know how to carry me well. It felt like she was really wobbly in the shoulders and having a hard time because she didn't know how to lift her back up to carry a person. She had had 3 months training sometime last year after she was purchased from the breeders by a trainer, clinician, gaited, and then she was shipped to Minnesota to the new owner. So I don't know if the lateralness or the pace came from her initial training or if it was something that happened as the owner had her, but the mare has not done anything to say she was creating resistance or it was a temperamental thing. She felt to me like she was doing exactly what she was taught to do. I found her to be very much a conformist, not a tester, none of those independent behaviors, just always trying to get along really, really well. But she did tend to pull. I was told she was curious. I haven't found her to be what I call curious, which I like to see in a horse. She just thought she was supposed to pull on a lead, pull on a line. It tended to make her stiffer. Pull on a rein. When I rode her the first time in a side pull, she didn't know what a soft aid was. It was like she'd been pulled around, so she would unbalance. She didn't know how to do a soft pull, release left, pull, release to the right. She didn't know. She knew how to drop her head. When you put on her, asked her to drop her head, she knew how to drop it. Go ahead. But she didn't know how to drop it and flex and be real soft and supple through her head and through her pole area. Same when I did lateral flexion. She knew how to kind of break her neck, but she didn't know how to arch it and do the suppling. So I've been working on a lot of that with her. She still has a long way to go, but it's been opening up the door. It takes a lot longer to do rehab work on a horse if they've been going stiff because they've been doing what they thought they were supposed to do. She's totally been doing what she thinks she was supposed to do. So I've been trying to do a lot of different things like that. I thought when I rode her in a side pull the first time that, you know, maybe it was just the side pull and new equipment. So I was able to email the owner, what have you been riding her in? She said a snaffle bit. I didn't get the mouthpiece, any detail on it. You know, a lot of the specifics have been very clouded for me and not clarified in the communication on the horse and everything that's been done. So all I can do is assume. So I did put her in, the second time I rode her, I put her in just a Western D snaffle bit, a miler with a little 03 mouthpiece on it. I found she responded exactly the same. She didn't know how to give to a bit. She was used to being pulled to ask her to move, not a signal and softness. And I also found when I put leg on her, she just thought she was supposed to go faster. She didn't know how to bend and arc her body. She didn't know how to lift her back at all or flex it. So I went back to the side pull because she tended to have resistance to the bit, immediately would just up and stiffen. She was doing exactly what she thought she was supposed to do. So some of the things I've been trying to do because she didn't know how to raise her back was right off the bat was to do things. I'll go out and get on the other side. You're good. Okay. Couple things I've been doing to teach her to open up her back and how to flex it up. When I first did them, she didn't respond at all. She wasn't comfortable. But through doing these things, she started learning how to lift her back. That will help strengthen the top line. It'll also teach her that she can lift her back and in turn and in time learn to lift me and carry me as well, because a foxtrot is either a neutral level back gait if it's done properly, or it has some slight flexion upward of the spine where we kind of term it an amount of collection, not full collection. So what I started doing was some belly lifts and getting her to raise, like you just saw the saddle raise. Good girl. Creating a relationship, doing a lot of positive reinforcement and talking to her a lot so she learns to trust me and not get tense, because she tend to get tense around people. Her eyes would kind of get big and she wanted to do the right thing, but she was always tense. So the other thing I also do is I go further forward, more towards the base of the wither on the horse. And I also do something called wither lifts, trying to get them to lift up through the shoulder. So when I ask for my leg aids, ask her to lift her back up to me, she can also open up all the way through the shoulders, and that will maximize her front end extension, especially since a foxtrot has extension, not animation. And the other thing I have been doing, so she can learn to engage her pelvis and tip her pelvis, because she was used to being stiff and locking herself in the back end, was taking and doing some pelvic tucks and getting her to flex her pelvic. So it all builds the top line, but it also teaches her that she's able to use these things to maximize movement I'm going to need for foxtrot. So I did a lot, so I've been doing a lot of that. I've been doing a lot of the head down, just soft. Good. And when I work with the horse, I always keep my knees and my joints open. If I approach it stiff, the horse mirrors me and becomes stiff. So I try to keep my joints as open as I want them when I get on a horse. Some other things are some lateral flexion. And I don't pull the horse. I open, close, or squeeze, release my fingers. And I do 3 positions. And so I work here, and I put a hand at the jaw and ask her to bend this way. Then I take her head what I call home. Good girl. Again, building relationship, giving her positive reinforcement. And then the next position is the center of the neck. And I also do a little bit of open close pressure on the neck too, so she knows where I want it to arc. I have to move back so she has room to bend. Good girl. So I ask for it. Pulling for it doesn't help the horse because it's forcing the muscles to move. It's not relaxing them so she can extend the muscles to make the lateral movement. And then the last position is right in front of the scapula, And again, it's just an open close. So now she actually starts bending her neck some and starts creating some suppling. Some other things, and I usually do both sides of the horse. And some other things is she wasn't good at pole work. She was very stiff in her pole. She still is. She's better under saddle, but rehabbing takes a lot longer than starting with a clean slate. So a couple other things I've been doing is I put a hand on the jaw, a hand here, and ask her to just rotate. Good girl. Her pull back and forth. She gets anxious, I just rub her, good girl. And to try to do this, just to kind of get that cranial rotation on that C1 vertebrae so it stays soft on her. And then another thing I do is what I call bouncing. And it's just a soft push release so she learns how to be real soft. So when I start using rein, she will be able to do the same thing. Good. So when I ask her pole releases left and pole releases right, so when I'm doing shoulders forward and shoulders in and shoulders out, she can create the proper shape and arc in her body to achieve that. I'm trying to find softness and suppleness in the horse. I went back to the side pole after riding her the second time in the bit, finding, I was going to get rid of a piece of equipment right now that she was used to and stiffened with. I don't know, I can only assume, but what the horse's body tells me is that, she thought when she moved she was supposed to get stiff and raise her head. That can come from emotions. It can come from always being pulled and tension, be it on the ground with lead lines, lunge lines, from the back with reins. Anytime some application came to the head, she thought she was supposed to stiffen. So I went back to a piece of equipment that was something that was different to her, being a side pull. I actually keep it very soft on the face. I like to adjust my nose band about 4 fingers from the top of the nostril. I don't like it tight because I don't want to clamp her jaw shut. I want her to be able to release her jaw and relax it when she's comfortable. One of the real important things about this gait, the Foxtrot, is looseness and relaxation. She didn't have a flat walk, so she had no head nod. So I had to teach her 3 speeds of walk and work up to flat walk to start getting some extension and some head motion. So when we started to find Foxtrot, we also got that relaxation element that's a part of that gait. In order to get her to break up the pace, she was so ingrained in pace and stepping pace. I actually put boards out in my arena on the long side, put 1 down each side, and would run alongside of her on a line. I use flat boards, whether they're 4 inches wide or 6 inches wide. I don't use round poles. If a horse steps on a pole accidentally, which they will do, it can roll out from under them and down they go. They lose confidence. Where if they step on a flat board, they're just going to hit and they're going to keep going. But I would run alongside of her as she was pacing and keep the energy going, and when she would go over the board, it'd break that lateral into a moment of diagonal as she lifted and rounded to go over the board, and I'd give her positive reinforcement, good girl. And then I did the same thing under saddle. We're now to the point where we're not working boards, we're actually having some breakthrough and getting some foxtrotting now. It is not set. It is going to take a considerable amount of time of just consistent and working, because she likes the Foxtrot, but she still has a hesitation of, am I really supposed to do this? Is it okay for me to do this? And I keep telling her yes. And so it's a lot of work. It's a huge amount of work. You really have to get up and ride a horse when you do this. So, but we're making some breakthroughs. And just to give you an idea of what it takes sometimes to rehab, and it doesn't mean you rehab all horses the same for gait, but this is what I found it took for her, because she was so ingrained in the pace. It's just what she thought she was supposed to do. Some other points for me is, again, doesn't matter what the breed or what the gait, or even in a non-gaited horse, you'll notice I always put my saddles way far forward. I keep my back and my front girth equally snug on there because I want to keep the front end of the saddle open so her scapula can work back and forth properly, so I can maximize the extension of her shoulders and her front legs, because the Foxtrot is a gait extension. Even if you have animation, you need to keep so those shoulders and the foreleg assembly can maximize without restriction. So getting as close to the base of the wither in my seat is the easiest place for her to carry me. It's the strongest part of her back. So I try and get that saddle up where I can get the seat, my seat, as close as possible. I'm going to move her around. I never get on a horse until I kind of move them around a little bit to see what their emotions are. She has a distraction of a cameraman today, so this is different for her. But I like to see what their emotions are, what their eyes are, what their energies, that they're sound this day. It establishes the relationship for the session again. Good girl. I don't yank and pull. She was very reactive, so everything for me has been just soft, quiet. I want responsive, not reactive. Good. And then send her the other way. Good girl. A lot of it, when she would walk on a line or a lunge or whatever, she thought she was supposed to put her head up. I don't let horses stop to poop. That was another thing we've worked on. Keep them moving because they can move and poop. And she's getting it. Good girl. As I, again, doing this, I keep my joints really open. I keep my body really soft because I want her to move more with her head down, not up and hollow. Good girl. And we're finally on the line getting a real walk with a little bit of head motion instead of an up-headed pace lateral walk that we got on the line. And now she doesn't pull anymore, because when she pulls, she would lean in. That helps create pace, which we don't want. I want to keep her as perpendicular to the ground as I can so she equalizes the weight on all four legs. And so what I do is I tip that inside eye just till I can see it, so I get an arc in the body, the shape of a circle. And by working more in straightness, I eliminate the lateral movement in the ground. Good. Oh. Good girl. I wait. They can't come into me. I go into their space. Give her some positive reinforcement on the neck. So, one other thing I noticed when she came, her belly still, her stomach still needs some work. It's going to take, a bunch more months of regular, consistent work and trying to teach her to lift up her back. But it's so much better because it was really big. And the other thing was that her neck was very straight. And now, if I flex it some, I'm starting to get a little bit of the better right side up shape to it, instead of just straight and more bulged down on the bottom. So I am slowly getting her top line to shape properly. But it takes many, many months, and she's gotten a real good start in the time that I've had her. I always double check my girth. I found basically what she knew was just to walk, lateral walk under saddle, one speed, then go into a mix between a pace and a stepping pace. She did back well as also, and I thought mounting, she was wonderful for mounting. So getting her to mount from a mounting block was so easy because I just led her up to it, and I just do when I have one out. And she doesn't move. She's been really good. That's not something I taught her. It was there, which pleases me. So when horses start moving when mounting, it means you're not mounting properly, or you're bringing in an energy in yourself that they're not comfortable with. So they get tense and move, and a lot of times if you're not mounting properly, you're unbalancing the horse. So I tend to, when I mount a horse, is try to keep their legs under them. Don't have them like this, because then they're going to have to move a leg to rebalance when they start bracing to get ready for your weight to come up. Good girl. Now position. Everybody talks about position and the ideal position, and everybody gets caught in the look. You know, and yes, we want a level pelvis. We want a balanced seat. We want our legs well under us, but we want, being a woman, I need to have a little more bend in my knee than men do. They tend to have can have a little straighter knee. But the problem is people get stuck and they just think position and how the position looks. That is just a small piece of riding any horse properly. Your position also has to be mobile. It also has to be movable, because your horse is going to need you to not only guide and support and direct it through your rein aids, you have to work through your body aids first. So you're going to maybe have to move a leg here towards the back, roll a calf on. With her, to get Foxtrotter, I have to really open her up. And I have to really push with my legs to get her to raise her belly. So I try to keep my pelvis level, but I got to really apply a lot of leg, keep the front end open, and really get her to come up to the top. So, you know, try to maintain the level pelvis, but it's not about how pretty you look. It's about how effective you are for the horse. So you've got to be mobile and movable for the horse. In bending and turning a horse, you don't want to be leaning, especially on a horse you're trying to fix lateral movements or pace movements, because if you lean, what happens is you're weighting two lateral legs and encouraging the horse to be lateral. You still, when you're going to bend, turn through the waist. Then your leg aids automatically come into play. This one rolls on, this one opens up, and the horse bends around this leg. When you do this and your hands come into it, you're already releasing your outside rein, talking to your inside rein. There you go, give me a pull release. Good girl. So your hand aids will come into play as your immediate secondary aid. And if you work this way, your seat bone says bend in the rib cage under here, where if you drop your seat bone, you're telling the rib cage to collapse under the seat bone, and the horse tends to distend its abdomen this way, again, weighting the two inside legs, encouraging pace. So again, straightness, trying to keep that horse as perpendicular to the ground and not shifting your body a lot from side to side if you can avoid it. It's not always avoidable. It's not perfect every time we get on a horse. You know, every horse feels a little different. Every horse you have to readjust how you support them quickly, sometimes very quickly, especially if they stumble. I mean, she can stumble in here pretty easy because she's just starting to learn, instead of animate her legs, extend them for the foxtrot. So the position is important, but it has to be open, it has to be effective. It's not about being stiff, rigid, and the look and locking your back. You have to keep that soft and open too. So whatever position and shape you are on your horse in your vertical posture, your horse is going to mirror in a horizontal posture. So be very aware of keeping yourself open and what you're doing to help the horse hear your body shape. Okay, so I'm going to just ask her to walk around and just kind of get used to carrying me again every day, always the same. I'd never have the mentality, ever, even on my old established horses, that I'm going to back them out of the garage and we're going to go for a joyride. I always get the feel of my horse. I always do ask some simple things, so we hook up for the day. We establish the relationship. I always ask for some simple things, good girl, and some turns. And it's going to be different for her today because she has a cameraman up above her and she knows he's there. And she knows that I'm talking a lot while riding, which is not normal. You know, she's used to hearing the good girls and that's it. So I'm just going to let her kind of slow walk. Now I'm going to ask for a little more energy. Let her blow the cobwebs out of her sinuses a little bit. Ask for her to extend the walk a little more. Start looking for a little bit of that head nod. Start asking for her to flex her pole a little bit vertically. She still has trouble with it because she wants to raise her head instead of lower it. Ask for a little shoulder forward. Good girl. Positive reinforcement. Ask for a little shoulder forward to the inside. Now just tip till you see the back corner of the eye. Good girl. Ask for a little shoulder out. Good girl. Ask for a little shoulder in. I know you're avoiding him, aren't you? You know he's there. Good girl. Ask her to turn, trying to get a little pole release to the left to do it. Little turn, trying to get a little pole release to the right to do it. There you go. Good girl. Good job. Ask her to stop. Good girl. Ask her to put her head down because she's got to put her head down. That's been a key point of trying to get her to break Foxtrot. Good. Ask her for the back. Good. Good girl. Now I'm going to change things up in order to get her to go Foxtrot. I can't put tension on her nose band on her side pole, and I wouldn't be able to do it with the bit either because then she gets stiff and gets lateral. Okay, so one of the things that I use is to get her to put her head down when I start pushing her forward, trying to create the energy for her to break from a stepping pace into a foxtrot, is I have been riding with the crop so I can tap her here because if I go to push down, I tip my pelvis, she unbalances. So I really want to keep my pelvis as sound as I can because I need to really use my legs to bring her up to me and lift her back. So tend to use the crop for that to help out as an extension, as an aid of my hand. When I use the hand aids, even for basic turning on her, I'm not pulling, I use all 4 fingers, and what I do is I squeeze, release my hand. So it's about it being a signal. My rein is a telephone line. My nose band of the side pole is the receiver. Because if I pull her, I off balance her and make it hard for her to carry me. So horses are very good listeners. I always use some leg with that. But I wanted to give you an idea of how I use my hand aids. You know, it's not to say I'm not going to have to use a little more strength sometimes if they don't hear me, or I'm starting with a youngster that doesn't understand the softness quite yet. But my goal is to really get to just softly feather or vibrate through the rein so the horse can hear me. Good. So if I just tap her, see how lateral she gets really quick? But I'm starting to get some head nod too. That reminds her to put her head down. The one thing about doing this is a horse can get a little stumbly. And I just keep pushing her. She knows he's there. And she hits that little foxtrot. Good girl, good girl. But I have to use my leg on her. And when she raises her head, she goes lateral. Lowers it, she goes diagonal. Good girl. But see how I stay out of her face? I really open up the front door so she can keep the looseness, because she was taught pressure on the face or on the headgear, tighten and pace. So I actually am pushing her through and beyond her lateral, and just remind her to put her head down. Going to the left has been easy. That was the quickest one for her to do. It was really hard for her to figure out how to foxtrot to the right. And so we've been getting some good breakthroughs on that now. And whenever she gets it, I tell her, good girl, so she knows she got the right thing. That's exactly what I want her to do. So again, remind her to put her head down. And foxtrot. Now just leave her face alone. And let her hold it. She gets so she lifts her head. She lowers it, she goes back to foxtrot. Got some head nod. It'll get more as she gets comfortable. And when she gets really, really good at it and it gets established, she'll start turning her ears loose and flopping her ears. But she's getting the transition of the foxtrot pretty well. She understands. Put my head down. I can switch over. Good girl. It has been a ton of work just to get to this point, because it was a lot of stiffening and pacing, and I really had to teach her to get her head down. You know, the goal is, as she progresses, and I'm not going to be doing the continuing work, I'm at the end of my work for the time I have her, is that you just keep, even where you don't even need the crop anymore, you just touch her on the neck, remind her to put her head down, and at some point, she'll just hit foxtrot, and you don't need to remind her of that anymore. And in time, you'll be able to put a little pressure on the face like that and have her give you a pull release to you and start arcing her neck a little bit better and creating a little more collection or roundness of the top line of the back for foxtrot. But said, it's hard work. You got to get on. You ride the horse. You are not a passenger in doing this. And to understand creating and shaping gaits, you have to know you're shaping the horse's body, and it's not all horses the same. If she had been unstarted and come to me unstarted, you know, the potential through emotion on any gaited horse to get lateral is there, but I would have never let her get lateral in the first place. I'd have worked a straight trot and then really worked a lot of flat walk with some head shaking under saddle, and then immediately just breaking into foxtrot. We'd have never dealt with the pace. But that's not your option as a trainer. You're working with what is brought into you. If she already knew how to put her head down properly and do vertical flexion and carry me, all I would have had to do was work through my reins to ask her to lower her head. But she thought rein pressure was stiffening. So I've had to, on this one, really throw the rein away in a sense and just keep her really soft, lift her through the center, and get her underneath herself behind to get her to break foxtrot. She really likes her foxtrot. It's a lot easier for her to carry, and she's getting really comfortable. Seems to be real happy that I'm letting her do it, because I watch her in a turnout and she foxtrots all over the place. On her own time, you never see her pace. I just see her foxtrot. So to have her come this far and do it under saddle and be able to give her good positive reinforcement is very gratifying for me. But it's, I can't guarantee it's going to continue and go home. It depends on what the skill of the rider is and what the knowledge base of the rider. That's always happens when you are training a horse for somebody else. is there are no guarantees. You know how to ride it doesn't mean they can, and I hope having some kind of a video diary or some will help an owner see the shape and give them the ways of how I've done this so it can carry through if they want to, because that's also, you're dealing with human choice in this as well. But anyway, this little mare has been a really good listener. She's been a delight. I love the challenge to myself. Each horse is like a Christmas present when I get them, and love getting into their minds and building the relationship that we can just do these things. And they trust me enough to say, yeah, you're doing the right thing. Just give me your body, give me your body. I won't let you down. And she's been really good about this. So anyway, thank you. I hope I've been able to impart some of the things I do. I know I don't say it all. It's really easy for me to just get on a horse and do it, then try to explain it verbally, especially while you're riding the horse. But over the years, I'm getting a little better, but I still don't get everything said. But I hope by the visual, you're able to gain a lot of information from this. So thank you.